Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video will probably be a short one, but I've promised myself that I'm going to continue this journey even if I have been awake since 2 a.m. and it is currently close to 9 a.m. so I've already been up for 7 hours, which is not a big deal since I am retired and staying home most days to try to get some writing done. So the reason I've been awake since 2 a.m. is the topic of today's video, and that is nightmares. So it was not something I want to go into too much detail about because I'm still trying to get those images out of my head. So hopefully at some point I may be able to take a nap. But on the positive side, nightmares, dreams, and experiences like that can be helpful to a writer because sometimes they provide us feelings that we don't get in our day-to-day lives. You might have a really happy dream that makes you euphoric, even though for the purposes of your day-to-day life, you're happy, but you're not that happy. And in the case of nightmares, you often may wake with a pounding heart, your pulse racing, clammy, and feel disoriented when you first wake up, like you can't remember where you are. And as in the case of the nightmare that I had this morning, it's really sticking with me. I have very vivid images in my mind of what I was dreaming and what woke me up. So I'm going to put those feelings to good use while they're still fresh in my mind, because I do need to get some writing done, and those feelings play into my current work in progress, which is a paranormal romance. So the characters in my paranormal romance are having experiences that are making them have these types of feelings: the fear, the anxiety, the disorientation, the bodily responses to the fear, your fight or flight syndrome taking hold, that adrenaline rush that you can't really get back to sleep because you're just so on edge from whatever you were dreaming. And those feelings can be difficult to describe if you haven't had them for a while. You can remember vaguely what you experienced, but it's good to have a really fresh perspective on that. And that's something I like to do when I'm writing. I like to try to get a fresh perspective on things, especially if it's something outside of my normal day-to-day routine. So, like I said, I plan to incorporate those feelings into my writing today. I do plan to write as much as I possibly can, and I am at a dramatic part of the story where this will come in handy. I can also go back and fill in a little bit in other parts of the book, because in this, I'm trying to make sure there is a rising action throughout the course of the book. Obviously, there will be a rising action in each of the chapters. So you have the excitement, and then you try to end the chapter in a way that's going to grab the reader's attention to keep them turning the pages. And you want that to gradually intensify over the course of the book. I understand that, and I try to do that. I'm not sure if I'm successful at it, but it is something that I'm working on. I know that once I do finish this work in progress, I will have to go back and smooth things out and revise and hopefully take out some of the more dull parts in favor of rising action. So I encourage my fellow writers, maybe as an activity as you go through the course of your day, take stock of what you're doing. Pay attention to your five senses. What are you smelling? Are you in an office where you've just gotten to work and maybe everybody is having a cup of coffee, so you're smelling the coffee, or you might be smelling the heater, because maybe there's dust in the heater and you can smell that kind of it's a slight burn type smell of the dust on the heating vents or whatever. The feeling of cold air against your skin, or vice versa, being out on a really hot day, depending on where you are, if you're in the northern or southern hemisphere. Right now, obviously, southern hemisphere is dealing with summer, whereas the northern hemisphere is dealing with winter. So those senses can come into play. Smells, sights, touch. And like I said, in the case of waking from either a dream or a nightmare, any heightened emotion that you may feel, how is your body reacting to that emotion? Are you in fight or flight mode? Are you so happy that you just can't imagine ever being unhappy again? There are just so many ways to incorporate your daily experiences into what you're writing. So I hope that whenever you're watching this, if you need a little inspiration, I hope you think about what you're doing. If you're sitting at your computer, or if you're writing on a sheet of paper, and everything just seems very normal, take a moment, look at a different view, turn away from your computer. What's on the other side of the room? What are you smelling on the air? Did you just clean the house and maybe you're smelling some kind of an antiseptic type of smell? Are you, have you been doing some workouts and maybe your muscles are sore? How does that feel to you? Try to incorporate as many of your senses into your writing as you can, and make sure that when you are writing, you try to follow that pattern of having rising action in each of your chapters, and then leave the end of the chapter in such a way that it makes your readers want to continue. And as you go through the course of your book and your story, make sure that rising action continues to increase throughout the course of the story until you reach that point where you have reached the pinnacle of the story, whether it's happy, whether it's frightening, whether it's horribly sad. You're going to hit a point in your story where you want that to reach the peak of emotion for your story arc, and then you'll have to bring it down a little bit to resolve it, and hopefully in a way that will please your readers. So like I said, I do understand how this works as a writer. I'm not sure I am successful at it, so if you'd like to check out my books and let me know, I'd appreciate it. But be kind. I've mentioned before, I don't think I'm the best writer in the world. I also don't think I'm the worst writer in the world. But I'm hoping as I release each of my books that they are improving, and that I'm better learning how to apply the things about writing that I have learned over the course of the years that I have been doing this. So, it has been a long day already. I mentioned that I'm almost 7 hours into the day and it's barely 9 a.m. So I need to sit down at my computer and get some writing done before I completely fall asleep. Plus, we are also recording one of our CC and JT Amateur Hour interviews with another author today, so that will be an interesting experience. And just on a more personal note, I should mention that we had a snowfall last night. I don't remember if I mentioned, but today is January 8th, 2026. We are in Carson City in western Nevada, just down the hill basically from Lake Tahoe. We're about a half-hour drive from the lake, and we don't often get a lot of moisture down here because of the rain shadow effect of the Sierra Nevada, but we did manage to get some snow last night. And when I woke up, just to give you an idea of scene, most nights, since we live in an urban area, there is a certain amount of light pollution, so the nights are not completely dark. And we do have a waning moon, I believe, right now. We just passed the full moon, so the nights will be getting a little bit darker. But in an urban area, they never get completely dark from light pollution. On nights when it's snowing, the light changes, and I've noticed that there is a little bit of an orange tinge to the night. The windows will look a certain way so that before I even open the curtains, I can tell that it's snowing outside because of the way the light looks. And part of the reason, which I just realized this morning, I'm 62 years old, it's taken me this long to figure it out, but it's a combination of the lower clouds. So we are at about 4,500 feet here. So during snowstorms, the clouds lower quite a bit. And then the blanket of snow on the ground, both the clouds and the snow reflect the light. And depending on what kind of lights you have around you, I think that determines the color of the sky. So it's a little bit like a light box, and things look a little bit orange around here based on the color of the lights, I believe the street lights. And I think that's what I'm experiencing. At least that's what occurred to me today. But those types of things can be incorporated into your writing. So I hope this brief ramble about my nightmare and emotions and creating tension or, arcs in your story is helpful. If nothing else, I hope it reminds you to look into that, maybe do a deep dive if it's not something that's occurred to you before or it's not something that you've practiced on your own. Take a little bit of time, and the best thing to do is practice. You can read other people's writing and look at where you find those points of rising action where things start getting tense. I remember distinctly reading Nancy Drew books as a child and getting to the end of the chapter and not wanting to stop. And often I got into trouble for being under my covers with a flashlight reading after I was supposed to be asleep. So that's the kind of writing that I hope to create. I want to really interest readers in my writing. But as I'm doing these videos, I will also hope to interest and encourage writers. I've mentioned in the past that JT and I are on a mission. We hope to encourage, educate, and entertain with what we're doing when we're putting out our podcasts and our videos. So hopefully you may find a little encouragement, if nothing else, out of this video, and the fact that even if you've had a rough night as a writer, you can put that to good use in your writing. So thank you for bearing with me as I get through these rough days. I've had a couple over the last few days where I believe the day before yesterday, the video I posted was another ramble. But this one I think maybe had a little bit more of a point and coherence than the previous one. And I will attempt along the line to do more informative videos when possible. But my main goal right here is to record something every day. Remember that it doesn't have to be perfect and just put it out there. I'm working on trying not to be such a perfectionist to the point where I can't finish a project. And this is my exercise in that, as well as being a little bit of a daily journal of what I'm doing this year. So again, thank you for bearing with me. I hope your week is going well so far and that you have a wonderful day wherever you are. Again, I'm Cassidy Carson, and this is the life of a writer. Take care.